Humidist Podcast.
Welcome, beautiful listener, to the Humidist Podcast with Steph and Hammer. How you doing, Steph?
I'm doing great, Hammer. You want to know why?
Yes.
Because yesterday, you and me, we saw one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that I can say that. You know?
It was good. It was really good. And, yeah, unless you've been sleeping on a rock, it was Dune, of course. And, yeah, I didn't really have too high of an expectation for this movie because I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't a veteran of the Dune universe. I've never read the books.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see the original movie, so you did, though, so you kind of... And did you read the books at all, or just...
No. I saw the movie from 84 back when I was probably around, I'm gonna guess 10, 11, something like that, and I have some fond memories of it because back then it was every summer my cousin who lives quite a ways away. I would always look up to him because he was 2 years older than me. He had access to all the cool shit, you know, and or at least in my perspective. And so he would sit in the basement room in my granddad's place during summers, and I would always watch him play stuff like Diablo 2, Heroes 3, and then we would watch that movie.
Sounds like good times.
Yeah, it was. It really was. It was so influential on me as well. And I gotta say that the movie itself, I don't remember too much of it, but I did know that, like, you know, that the new Dune has like a director that I have a lot of faith in, especially after Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And, you know, it had a really big budget, and the cast was really good. And
yeah, the cast was really on point.
Yeah, and then the story itself lends itself. That's one of the things I do remember from the old movies, that I thought, you know, if they can make it that epic with the constraints of being made in 84, you know, this director can do wonders with this franchise in 2021. So my expectations were actually quite high.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also came out super satisfied with this.
Yeah, and that's rare because when your expectations are up like that, it rarely, you know, matches up to reality. But still, this was it's so refreshing to have, like, because you feel, being so cynical and critical to everything, you feel like maybe it's just something wrong with you know, that you're just too spoiled or just too bitter. For some reason, old and bitter, but this was just when you get that this good movie, you know, then it's just so refreshing. So we both loved it. I can barely fault it for anything. It was quite long, but I was still, you know, interested throughout, and I can't really put my finger on anything in particular.
Yeah, and the interesting part is, like you said, it was long, and towards maybe the last half an hour, I started thinking about, all right, are there parts here that I felt was a little bit off? Was there any lines that was delivered a little bit off? Was there, you know, anything that I thought could have been done better? And for the remaining half an hour, I tried to, like, look a little bit extra hard to see if I can find anything at all. But I when I left the cinema, I was like, yeah, you know, we talked about this after as well, right? So it was like, I just couldn't find anything, and I tried just to have, you know, something, but I couldn't find it.
No, it was very well rounded in all corners. I mean, yeah, you could kind of find some, like, I can always find some kind of logical inconsistencies, but
sure.
Those are like, I mean, when the Harkonnens are gaining, are we gonna go spoilers already, or just...
No, not yet.
No.
If it's spoilery, just go later.
Okay, so the movie is basically airtight.
Yeah.
There, you know, you can always kind of find some logical inconsistencies, but those are very few and far between here.
Yeah, and I think that am I right in saying that they weren't really distracting at all?
Yeah, I totally agree. They weren't like standing out. Maybe if you're over analyzing the movie, then you might like see some inconsistencies here. And there, but still.
But then it's I feel like it's, if that's the length you have to go to find some apparent flaws, then
yeah, I mean,
it's a great movie.
yeah, it's a great movie. But we do think that, you know, I do think this is one of the better movies I've seen in later years.
Do you think that, because this is part 1 of 2, it seems.
Yeah.
So that means the next movie is also going to be very, very long. So because, you know, judging from where it got to in terms of plot for the old movie,
yeah,
then, you know, there's still quite a bit left. And, you know, would you say this is close to the level of cinematic experience as The Lord of the Rings?
Oh, yeah. So, that's a hard one.
I know, but if you try to take your bias towards
towards
Lord of the Rings,
Lord of the Rings, it's very hard to take my bias away, because I mean, I've read the books like 5 times. Yeah. And listened to the audiobook maybe 20 times. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So the Norwegian audiobook, I know almost all the phrases and stuff like that. So I do love me some Lord of the Rings, and I do share. That's like it has a special place in my heart, and this is new to me. The Dune series is totally new. I mean, I knew about the Dune series. I played the Battle for Dune RTS back in the day. But in terms of, like, purely in terms of movie making and cinematic experience, I'm gonna place this a hair shy of The Lord of the Rings, but it's very close. It's very close. Yeah,
I agree with you on that one. I think that also. I think this is the same ballpark. I think this is the same tier of movie.
It's absolutely the same tier. Yeah, I would say so as well. And there's just so many things going for this movie. I mean, the cast, like you said, perfect, and acting performances was insanely good. Often playing in like science fiction, fantasy universes is hard. Yeah, because it's so far from reality, and you need to kind of, you know, imagine your character just living in an insane feudal futuristic society where, you know, houses and honor mean everything, and, you know, the power goes to whoever controls the spice trade and whatever. You know, it's like, to kind of put yourself into that character is it's hard to be convincing on like a serious level, and I felt that we got that here. Not trying to avoid spoilers now, but
I think I absolutely love the cast, and especially, I mean, there were those I knew that were safe bets, like Jason Momoa was great, Josh Brolin, of course, and Oscar Isaacs as Leto Atreides was really good as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But then the one I was a little bit skeptical or didn't know what to expect, I guess, was Timothée Chalamet as Paul Atreides, the main character. And he just super convinced me. I stand
he was
corrected.
Really good.
Yeah,
he was really good. And I mean, Dennis in an interview said that what he was looking for in the character was to be able to look very young and innocent, but also have like a feeling of experience in the eyes, or maybe like you know, Timothy has kind of that 1,000-yard stare with a determination in it, which kind of gives you a feeling of this guy has a purpose now.
Yes.
And I feel that, I mean, I saw that interview after we saw the movie, and that was like my exact kind of impression from the character was exactly that he was like young and insecure, but then he had that weird, like, you kind of get a hero's journey feeling, you know, that he has a calling, and there's like something living inside him which is much more mature and hardened, you know, than the little boy.
Yeah, and I think the contrast in that was very well portrayed as well. Like, for example,
absolutely,
there were times when he was supposed to be insecure. He seemed really insecure, and then it kind of seemed like, okay, is this gonna be one of those trophy things? But as soon as things got hard and he had to step up and fight and stuff, like you just like, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he's actually super trained by two of the best fighters in the galaxy, Duncan Idaho and Gunry. And he knows how to fight, and he just and he shows it, and then it
absolutely,
and he sells that like one of the
sells
fights
it convincingly.
Yeah, he does. He seemed dangerous. Like there was a confrontation later on in the movie where you know there are him and another character fighting some other like a group of characters, and the way I'm trying.
Spoiler free, guys. Spoiler free.
Yeah, but this is very vague, right? I'm not gonna say anything about the circumstances. We'll get into it later.
You're good at it. You're good at it, stuff.
But that scene, as soon as shit hits the fan, you just see him just tactically positioning himself really, you know, properly, and just the immediately move to gain the upper hand and stuff. I thought it was really well done.
Yeah, me too. I mean, like you said, you could easily get like a Gary Stu feeling here. But there's none of that. You feel that you feel kind of his fear, even though he's a capable fighter, like you said.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tension built up, and you can feel that he's in mortal peril in these situations. You know, there's no like, and that's hard to do because he's the main protagonist.
Yeah.
And you can, you know, you're still a little bit on edge.
Yeah.
Really hard to do, and it impressed me greatly.
Yeah, and
so yeah, absolutely, Timothy knocked it out of the park.
Do you want to do a quick rundown of the main plot? Because if 1.5 of you is listening to this without actually having any knowledge of the movie.
Okay, so let's try to do it. Break it down. So in like, I don't know, it's 10 or 20,000 years in the future, humanity.
Year 10,000 something.
Yeah, I saw it, but somewhere I read it was 20,000. But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So in the far future, humanity has colonized huge amounts of planets, and it's kind of regressed a little bit after it's very similar to 40K, after a war or a jihad, basically against machines, against thinking machines, and which resulted in the abolishment of the use of AI, and that resulted in the restricted ability for humanity to travel interstellarly, or just travel between the stars, basically. So yeah, okay, so now the society regresses a little bit. It becomes more feudal, and it is discovered that through the use of a chemical called spice, which basically is insanely rare, or just one planet that has it, you can kind of mutate and enhance human ability, and which results in a guild of navigators that can safely navigate spaceships again.
Sounds familiar.
Sounds very familiar, and this, of course, becomes one of the most sought-after resources in the galaxy, because, you know, being able to travel is basically what builds the empire and keeps it together. So in control this human empire is an emperor, of course, and he, in our story, assigns one of the leading noble families of the galaxy to take control over the planet Arrakis, where spice is found. This is the only place where it's found. And traditionally, for 80 years, there was another family controlling this planet, growing very rich and powerful. And this is where our story starts, in the transition between the ownership or fiefdom of Arrakis from the Atreides family from the Harkonnen family to the Atreides family.
Yeah,
which is like the two of the most prominent noble families.
Mm-hmm.
And so initially we think that this is just, I don't know, some kind of political, just normal trade situation. But then we discover that this is actually a ploy from the Emperor to undermine the power of the Atreides family.
Yeah.
He's basically backstabbing them and letting the Harkonnens, kill them, basically. He sets the stage for war between them. Between them, and of course the Harkonnens does not want to give up the insane resource harvesting they've been doing and making billions of Solaris every year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like the premise. You want to take it from there?
Should we say anything more?
Without spoiling, you mean? Yeah.
Well, I guess we could say that. So the main characters we focus on are mostly members of the Atreides family, with Timothy Chalamet's Paul Atreides, the young son of the Duke Atreides, being the main focus here. Yeah. And as soon as they end up going to Arrakis, then things start happening, and it turns out that Paul is somehow, related to the locals, the Fremen, and he keeps having visions, and it all kind of sets the stage for Paul's journey.
Yeah.
So should we say more?
I don't know. It's up to you, man, how much we spoil. I mean, this is basically where, for me, we can spoil, but...
All right, let's wrap up the spoiler-free section first. Some quick pros, like quick, really positive standout points.
Insanely good. I mean, visually, both traditional cinematic shots and establishments and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Really, really great. And I think that almost all of the CGI stuff was also really good.
Oh yeah.
Like design elements like the shields and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like just visual storytelling like that. It's blue when it's deflected and red when it's almost on the breaking point.
Yeah.
Just kind of showing you with colors how it works is really good. And actors doing a perfect job. Really convinced me on. I can't really fault any of the actors here.
No.
So
no standout that was like less than the others. I found no lines that I thought was delivered a little bit wonky. I think everything was just. This was pitch. Absolute great effort by the actors.
Yeah. So can't really. That's the pros. The cons. Just it's long. It's a little bit, tiring for some people. It will be a little bit tiring for some people to sit through it all, but it's still worth it to enjoy this movie. So yeah.
So if you were to score it, what would you give it? Out of 10.
It's like out of 10. It's like if I can do decimals, I would say maybe like 9.23.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's almost like a 10 out of 10 for me, but it can't be quite because 10 out of 10 should be almost unattainable.
Yeah, fair enough. If 10 out of 10 is like the unreachable ultimate goal that is kind of like perfection that can't really be obtained.
Yeah, almost full like.
then yeah, for my case, the pros were as you listed, and also, we'll get more into this in the spoilers, but then all the portrayals of the different houses and the cultures and how they really nailed that. Normally they say show, don't tell, and there's a lot of exposition in this movie, but they also show everything in such a badass fashion on screen as they're narrating. So I'm like, I was so hooked and I was so excited to see all these things that they were showing, all the massive fucking ships and the, just their uniforms and their culture and like just all these things. Whenever a new house or something was shown, I was like, "Ooh, this looks fucking cool!" And we were just like sitting there, really excited. So many cool things. Perfect casting, as you said. The Harkonnens also were just like, "Whoa, they're a trip." I mean, Palpatine has almost found a contender now in terms of like cartoonishly evil but also great villains.
yeah.
This is like, so Baron Harkonnen also was one of those, he's like Palpatine's fat younger brother that just like took laziness as a superpower. But I also, for the negatives, sure, I think that this also can be a little bit of a hard sell for someone who's a very casual moviegoer that wants to have everything very streamlined, very clear cut. It doesn't explain everything. It has some vague elements like the visions. We'll probably get into them later. Yeah. And there is a lot of expositions.
Yeah, but what if you summarize like the score out of 10 decimals?
Yeah, I was pretty excited. I would say this as because of how much fun I had and how little few flaws, because I don't mind the exposition and I'm not a casual moviegoer. I like slow burns, and not that this even was much of a slow burn at times, but
no.
So for me, this was a 9.7.
9.7, yeah. Absolutely fair. Okay, so now that's it for the spoiler free. If we manage to,
you have been warned.
Yeah, and let's get into the spoilers because this is where the meat is. I mean, why did you put it like 9.7 and I 9.3 or whatever? So let's try to be critical. Like you said, it's a lot to get into, and often that's where like a movie like this fails, is to try to deliver a huge universe, well-developed universe in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And often it's just some voice narrating like the whole kind of premise of the movie before it starts. And
maybe you'll see a cave painting at the same, like vaguely summarizing as he's saying,
And things can often feel, the pacing can often feel like very hodgepodgey and messy in like huge movies like this. But I think here there's none of that. The storytelling, the establishment of the universe is just perfectly done. I mean, you don't need to know the Dune universe at all to enjoy this movie. And I think that's a feat in itself to be able to do that, because that's really hard. So like the start of the movie, perfect, and the design, also the costume design. I mean, they have a lot of inspiration, of course. So I mean, they don't need to come up with all this, but they need to kind of refine it and make it their own, And they really, really nailed it there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Just the armors that they were wearing, all of them were fucking cool, and some of the ceremonial outfits was like so out there, but also very believable in the setting. Like for example, when the Emperor's envoy arrives on the Atreides home planet to deliver them the proposition to take over Arrakis.
Yeah. Fucking scroll.
Yeah. And then and then you saw those like people walking behind the envoy that had these giant like bulbous helmets inside robes, and it was so out there, but I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it too. So like all of the aesthetics, the costume design, everything was really, really well done. So like picking up from where we introduced the start of the movie, the Atreides start by like trying to resume mining operations on Arrakis. And they run into some problems, but then out of nowhere, it seems like the Harkonnens strike, and they've like bought some sellsword, kind of the daggers of the Emperor. I can't remember the name.
The Sardaukar.
Sardaukar. They're like some family with their guns for hire, basically.
Yeah.
But they're really good at fighting. And so the Harkonnens and the Sardaukar start attacking the Arrakis cities, basically, and the main city where the Duke lives. And they have some infiltrator also to help kind of kill the Duke and get him. And there's a whole thing with his motivations, and you see how bad Monsieur Harkonnen is.
And what a trip that guy is.
Yeah, the fat fucking bastard. But we'll get into him. But my first kind of small criticism in the movie is, I don't know how this is done in like but this is like one of those logical inconsistencies, I feel, because the Atreides and the Harkonnens are enemies from like far back. And when the Atreides arrive on Arrakis, you would expect them to kind of establish some kind of planetary defense system.
Yeah.
I would at least, expect them to do that, and some kind of warning system for like a huge, fleet to attack them. They should like have some kind of advanced warning. Yeah. Maybe the infiltrator, or there were more infiltrators that we didn't see that kind of collaborated to not relay such a message or something like that. But I feel that the attack was a little bit, we should have gotten like a reason for why like huge capital ships full of warriors could like approach the planet without getting detected.
The only thing that I remember being related to that was they did mention something about how their communications were downed or were jammed.
Yeah.
But I don't know if what that entails. I don't know if that
entail. Yeah, maybe it was like a storm or something. That's like a usual thing. But you would also expect like planetary defenses to be positioned in geostationary orbit and stuff. You wouldn't necessarily have them on planet, because it takes a lot of energy to pump weapons out from the gravitational well of the planet. So like logically, there should be some kind of defense system in orbit, and it should be able to detect like a large fleet approaching. That's like one gripe for me.
Yeah.
I'm, a little bit autistic.
No, but I agree when you say, yeah.
But I mean, that's like the one. It's very small because it's executed well still, and it's still the thing that they put the infiltrator there, and probably it wasn't the only one, and there are multiple cities on Arrakis also.
It would probably take like a couple of lines extra of dialogue to fix this issue.
Yeah.
But since it's there, and since you mentioned it, then yes, I agree on that.
Yeah, but that's like a small thing. It doesn't ruin anything. I mean,
no.
Movies usually are littered with these kind of small inconsistencies. And for what I know, maybe like the novel or the books kind of elaborate on this. Probably they do,
Yeah.
So it's like something that the director kind of expects you to know, and he doesn't expect casual viewers to care. So they kind of admit that, because, and like you said, it might be just some kind of lines that could fix it, but you also need to kind of establish some in-universe reason for how a large capital ship can approach. Without any sensors picking it up or anything like that. I mean, maybe I don't know.
I mean, if you see a giant sausage up in the sky, what will you do?
Yeah, because the sausage ship was fucking badass. It was the like interstellar ship was basically like a huge sausage-shaped hollow pipe.
Yeah, it was essentially a large ass pipe, and from out of it, just a bunch of sesame seed chips just came out.
Yeah, yeah, just squirting them out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's like one small. I mean, for me, this is a very small thing because it was done very well, and you didn't really notice that at all in the action scenes.
I didn't think of it during the time actually, but now that you mention it, yes, that is a thing. Yeah.
And then so the Harkonnens they come to the palace, they fuck everyone over. The Atreides are just basically royally fucked. Do you want to like elaborate on the attack? It was quite a lot of badass action scenes.
Yeah,
it was really done.
I mean, I think most of the characters that were established among the Atreides household, most of them got their time to shine. So
yeah,
you have Gunry essentially in his sleeping robes.
Yeah,
and he's like the veteran, the older harried veteran that is responsible for a lot of the training for the main character, right? And just you see these ships that just like drop bombs that penetrate the shields and all that, and then they land and they just start dropping soldiers and everything's exploding around them. Their huge drop ships are exploding in front of them, and then Gunnery is like, you know what, fuck it, that's not gonna deter us, let's charge it with like a small sword and our sleeping robes.
Yeah, he's like, I wanna kill. That's basically his intention there. He wants to get into the thick of it. He just wants to kind of get down with one of the enemy soldiers right there and then.
Yeah, he just
he knows he's doomed.
Yeah, but he takes no prisoners. He's just like, you know what? Fuck it. The sooner I can slit throats of Harkonnens, the better. And he just charges with the other people. I thought that was really cool. And whatever scene Duncan Idaho was in was always great. And Jason Momoa killed it.
He was really, really badass.
Yeah, and when when he steals the ship.
When he steals the ship, that's really cool. Yeah.
He just like runs out, and everything's being bombed and destroyed around him. He comes out there with his swords, and there's some Harkonnens, or are they Sardaukar? I don't remember. But they drop out of these like...
No, they're Harkonnens, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they drop out of these really cool dragonfly designed ships.
Yeah.
That are called like ornopters or something. I'm not sure. And they're really cool, but then they drop out some soldiers. He just charges them by himself. He just like fucks them up in split seconds each. And then he's like beelining for the ship, and the remaining soldiers, did you see how he just slaughters them like a Dynasty Warriors character? And they're just like, you know what? You can have that ship.
Yeah.
We'll just like chill.
They're like, fuck this. Just take it.
And he taunts them as well to deter them, kind of like, and that really reminded me of some of the best Khal Drogo scenes from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it was really badass in those scenes. He fits that warrior, all-out warrior so good, that character. So, yeah, he was very believable, and his scenes were excellent. There was also a really cool action scene where he takes this... the ornicopter or whatever they call that thing, the dragonfly thing, and just fucking tried to escape, but also tried to inflict some damage.
Yeah.
And he kind of lured the mothership to fire a fucking giant laser beam and scorch some blue fire, and the beam was really. I mean, the weapons were cool.
Yeah,
I love when directors try to create weapons that are both stylistic and cultural.
Yeah.
And like futuristic. So you kind of get both here, and you also get the melee. You get the feeling that since it's like a feudal society and there's like honor and stuff, people actually fight with swords.
Yeah.
Even though it's much more efficient to like have ranged weapons, of course. But you get a little bit of explanation with the shields.
Yeah.
But you still see how this is like a cultural thing. Like in the olden days. I mean, before in Europe there were the kings had their armies, and it was not like it was just a professional army basically that the king had, and you went to war, and if you lost, it's not like you went back and drafted the entire country to fight. It was like, okay, I lost, you got me this time, you can have this part of my country. And then it was all like gentlemanly and like, okay, next time I'll conquer it back.
Yeah.
Basically, it was almost like a sport, and you kind of see that a little bit here, like the feudal like honor system and sword combat and stuff like that.
Yeah, the concept of honor comes in a lot, especially when the Fremen comes in as well.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, but okay, so I think this sets the stage to introduce Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah,
because he just personally comes down there to fucking mock Duke Atreides almost.
Yeah, and Stellan Skarsgård, which is like perfect for this role.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah, and he is like, okay, so he's like a really fat, bald, hairless guy. And you get this feeling that he kind of doesn't live for like the body anymore, just for the brain.
Yeah.
And for like he has his ability to float around, and he's so like nonchalantly just fucking his head is like kind of slanted and over to the side. He's almost he doesn't care, he doesn't use energy, he doesn't waste energy on bodily movements.
No.
It's all in the brain for him. You get the feeling of that. And
yeah,
he's basically like a human slug.
Yeah, he's kind of like floating human Jabba, but with understandable dialogue.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And evil. Very, very evil.
Keyword.
Yeah.
Keyword being very evil.
Yeah, he's very evil. So he, the thing is that Duke Leto, the guy who betrays them, he does it because Vladimir has his wife. Baron Harkonnen has his wife.
Yeah, and this is the doctor character we're talking about, right?
Yeah, the Dr. Yue. And he has, of course, tried to make a deal with Harkonnen to save his wife, and but he also has like a double plan where he installs a fake tooth in Duke Leto's mouth with a very poisonous gas.
Yeah.
In order to like kill Baron Harkonnen. And yeah, so when the Baron is kind of gushing over his victory and torturing Leto, basically floating above him, Leto bites down on the tooth, and the extremely poisonous gas is released, and it is a suicide also, but trying to take the Baron down with him, and it fails.
Yeah. Can we talk about how great that scene was? Because like some of the guards, they immediately rush out to seal off the door as soon as they see all the personnel, and they just drop instantly and they all die. And then they seal the room. They come in later after they've used a machine to pump the room and filter the air. They come in there, and they're like, they assume the Baron is dead, but they can't find him. And then they look up, and he's like, like all hunched up, like really like goblin-like in the roof.
Yeah, he's like pitifully clinging to life. Because he can float, right? So he like floats up to the ceiling, and I guess like it breathes into the small air pocket up there.
Yeah,
and he's like, it reminds me a little bit of Palpatine when he's the scene where Mace Windu has caught up to him, and he's trying to kill him, and Windu reflects the Force lightning back,
and he's like, I'm
he's
too
like,
weak.
Yeah, he's like, help me, Anakin, I'm too weak. I'm weak. It's kind of like, it's not really like that, but it's a little bit like that, that pitiful evil power character reduced to like clinging to life. Which is really good.
Yeah, that scene was a lot of fun. Just from, it's not quite campy, but it is very, like, it just fits his evil character so well.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And Paul Atreides and his, we didn't really talk about Lady Atreides.
No.
Lady Jessica.
With the Bene Gesserit and all that. That's a whole ball game.
So that's a whole like subplot thing here. Because Lady Jessica, the lady of House Atreides, the wife of Duke Leto, played by Rebecca Ferguson, is a member of like a shadowy clan of women called the Bene Gesserits. There's probably a lot of detail in the books about them, but they're a shadowy organization which possess like a special power born from spice, I guess. I don't really know, but I don't know. Do you know that?
I don't know any background of them other than the fact that they're very powerful and they can use the voice to command people, that forces people to command as long as they adjust the pitch and the volume to the right level.
Yeah, so they have like this magic ability almost to command other humans. And I guess that it's all in the Bene Gesserit order. There are only women, but Lady Atreides, she teaches her son Paul this art.
In the ways
controlling people with the voice. Yeah,
in ways of the Bene Gesserit.
And that's like a little bit of illegal activity, illicit activity. Almost. But the thing is, the Bene Gesserites, they are like this shadowy Inquisition, like I don't know, maybe not the Inquisition, but you get 40k vibes, very 40k vibes.
And they also kind of remind me, they if for a comparison to like a similar institute in a fantasy, I would say something like the mages, like the witches in The Witcher. I actually like the order of the mages and the sorcerers there, where they are very powerful, very knowledgeable, and then they often serve as advisors to different kings and queens and ruling institutes.
So that's basically what they do here as well, and control things from the shadows. So the thing is that Lady Atreides and Paul actually managed to escape the assassination onslaught, the just eradication of the Atreides camp. And the Bene Gesserites have basically this they've planted this idea of like a legendary hero basically coming forth, prophesized, and they've planted this story in religions. Like, you get the impression that it's throughout the universe. And like Lady Atreides, she thinks that her son is this prophesized savior, the Messiah, basically. But they don't really know who this Messiah is, and it seems like the Bene Gesserites really believe that there will come like this Messiah character. He will be born, but they also kind of try to cultivate him forth. They mentioned that they have several candidates. But the thing is that on Arrakis, the population, the local population, Fremen, they have like been indoctrinated for hundreds, even thousands of years for the coming of this prophet, or the Messiah. So when they see Paul, they like instantly recognize the prophecies and stuff like that, and they kind of, at least some people are like, this is the Messiah come, to our planet to save us.
And the Fremen are these really hard fringe people living in the far reaches of the desert, in these like pocket bases underground, and they share this living space with the gigantic sandworms, the Shai-Huluds, And the sandworms is one of the most famous things about the Dune franchise, I think, because they're everything from a few 100 meters long to, I think some of them can reach like kilometer length. You know, they're massive, and they constantly make spice harvesting into a very, very risky endeavor. But I also like that little thing where, you know, get to see a scene where Duke Leto, this is before the attack, when he's sort of just inspecting how the things on Arrakis is being done, and he just sees this harvester. There's this gigantic industrial spice harvesting machine in the desert, and then you see there's this like, you see that there's a worm incoming, and they just communicate that to the harvester, and then you get the business side of it, which is like, yeah, so estimated time to impact is about 5 minutes. You know, oh, okay, that's cool. You know, we'll chill for another like 4 minutes. They always wait until the last minute to get the maximum profit.
Yeah, it's the industrial, like cold, cynical, capitalist side of things.
Yeah, which was imprinted on them by the Harkonnens when they ruled Arrakis. And you know how I found this pretty funny, but you know how Palpatine is always about power. But Baron Harkonnen was like, as soon as he came out of that disgusting tar pit of rejuvenation, he came out and he's like, you have but one mission, income. His superpower is capitalism.
Yeah, but he knows all. Yeah, but because, and that's like important for world building, because you can kind of feel how, this is where the income of the family Harkonnen comes.
Yeah,
but they have like a home planet and probably control over different planets, you know, to varying degrees, and their kind of small empire within the empire is of course controlled by money.
Yeah,
you know, and so this conflict is, you get the feeling that, you know, the universe as a whole is much bigger, even though this is an entire planet and it's a very important planet. You also get the feeling that there's a whole other, you know, universe out there with intrigues and politics and economics and stuff like that, which is very important, you know, for the feeling of the universe.
Yeah, and then you have people like the Fremen who just adjusted to living in those extreme environments. They have also kind of like this very honor dependent warrior culture, and they have this thing where they show that, you know, them spitting when they greet someone is actually a sign of respect, because they're sharing moisture from their body, which is a valuable resource. Yeah.
So that's the thing. Yeah, the Fremen is very well like designed. They are, you know, a native, if you can call it that, people of the planet. They've been living there for thousands of years before they discovered the spice, basically, or the like properties of spice. And they are. It's like a traditional story of like imperialism kind of subjugating the local populace, right? And but like you said, they are extremely well adapted, and like it's a healthy mix of culture and adaptation to the environment, and also technology that is very specialized for surviving in this arid, insane climate. Which is very well done also in the movie, and it's believable. Here I come to like I have some gripes, of course.
Okay.
So in the like very late part of the movie, maybe we should wait a little bit and kind of follow the timeline.
Yeah, okay, so...
Yeah. But at least we're introduced to Dave Bautista as the Beast Rabban. And I mean, he doesn't have a large role, but his role is like he's set up to have a larger role, but he is perfectly cast.
Yeah,
he's so fucking, you know, intimidating.
Yeah.
Well, one of the first scenes we see with him is when the Emperor has declared that Dune or the planet of Arrakis will go to Atreides. And he comes into Vladimir just sitting there being fat and disgusting, and comes rushing in and screams with like this powerful. He's huge. He's in the fucking Space Marine like armor, and his head is like no hair at all.
Yeah.
He's white, really intimidating, gross type. But you see that he's so fucking strong, and he just screams to his uncle, just, how could the Emperor, fucking give it to these fucking losers? He's so fucking mad, and that scene kind of sets him up as a character. He's raw, he's violent, he's strong, uncompromising in every way.
Yeah.
And he fits just perfectly, So yeah, really good casting there.
There are, and there are a couple of roles that I think were really promising and done by pretty big actors, but they didn't have that much to do in this movie, but they're set up for the next movie. So you have
next movie.
One is him, and I know from the 84 movie too that Rabban has quite a few significant moments in the story.
Yeah.
And then you have Shani, played by Zendaya, who's Paul has been having visions of ever since he was like way before they went to Arrakis, because he's granted these visions from the bloodline of the Bene Gesserit or something, and so the Atreides have been connected or intertwined a little bit with the Fremen for a while, because also Paul's father, Leto Atreides, the Duke, he also planned to, because the Harkonnens just subjugated them and just took whatever they wanted, and underestimated the Fremen, but then Leto knew that in order to have any hope of turning that situation of having to, supervise Arrakis over to an advantage, he had to make an alliance with them and use their specialization and turn it into their own power, and just, to empower both sides. And this leads into Paul and his mom. After they escape, they rush to try and find the Fremen in order to seek refuge, but also eventually, it just seems like all paths for them leads to the Fremen somehow,
Yeah, and they don't really have a choice either, because they tried rendezvous with the doctor, or what's her name? Kynes.
Kynes, yeah.
She's like an imperial, I don't know, supervisor. She's supposed to make the transition from Harkonnen to Atreides work, basically. But she is also Fremen, but kind of it's implied that she knows a little bit of what's gonna happen. But then she does initially say that she doesn't side with the Atreides, but then she eventually kind of does and helps Paul and Jessica out.
Yeah.
So Paul and Jessica, they manage to escape the slaughter, and they're traveling basically out in the desert, trying not to be killed by the Harkonnens, which are hot on their tail. And they eventually meet with the Fremen. Let's skip forth. There's a whole thing there with which is very good, with Duncan, who they meet, and he seems to sacrifice himself for the protection.
Fighting the Sardaukar.
Yeah, and he kind of kills 20 Sardaukar by himself.
Yeah.
And basically saves Paul and Jessica, Lady Jessica there. So Paul and Jessica are just traveling, and I also like that segment because the pacing slows down a little bit, but you get a lot more emotion out of the characters there, where you can, and also how Timothy was portrayed when he realized he lost his father, that his father was dead. He got the ring with the sigil of his family.
Yeah.
which is borne which is like the Duke's symbol of I guess dukeship. And that was like very well done. I think he knocked it out of the park. Just raw emotion, and he was frustrated with his mother, who had laid this weird destiny upon him. And so we meet up with the Fremen at last. Basically, the last part of the movie is that they reach the Fremen.
After a very intense scene escaping from a worm.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, they barely escape a huge worm.
That scene was so fucking good though.
Yeah, it was really good. And you get this when the worm actually they come to the surface, but they don't like surface for real. Their head stays submerged until like the last feeding process. But in this scene, it comes up because of the rocks. You know, it can't bore under the rocks, so it comes up and stands before Paul.
Mm-hmm.
And you almost get this whale human encounter. Like, you know, you get the feeling that this creature is ancient and not like stupid. You know, it has some kind of intelligence in there. And so, but the worm is lured away by what's called a thumper, which is like a native tool developed to lure the worms because they're attracted to rhythmic vibrations.
Yeah, they have similar rules to operate by as the worms, the graboids in Tremors. If you've seen that.
Yeah.
To the listener.
Yeah, to the listener, to the one. And they meet up with the Fremen, and they have to prove themselves because the Fremen are not, you know, they, even though they've had this religion, they know who Paul is, but it's like 50-50. They don't all believe that he is like the chosen one or whatever, the Messiah. And they threaten to, and because like resources are so scarce, they threaten to take and then like kill Lady Jessica because they need her water, her resources contained within. And Paul, there we got a little fight scene where Paul and Jessica actually managed to like get an advantageous position. They're both really apt fighters, and Jessica's no slouch. I mean, she is really an intimidating foe.
She has a lot of great scenes where she just shows how much of a force of nature she is. The Bene Gesserit are not to be fucked with, that's for sure.
No. She can basically be like, kill yourself, and then you'll fucking kill yourself.
Yeah. And the voice, whenever they use the voice, the way that's made as well, it's so unsettling and so...
Very.
And you really get the feeling that it's powerful. You know, I thought that was they did a great job with that.
Yeah, and like the movie theater sound also made that really, it's like super bassy and vibrant.
Yeah.
And you really feel that it kind of penetrates your chest.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a powerful command that is issued that must be obeyed.
Yeah.
So and we get to see like Paul try this ability multiple times, and kind of you can see also he's evolving and becoming more apt at using it.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the encounter with the Fremen. So also a character we didn't get to see a lot was Stilgar,
the leader of the Fremen.
Javier Bardem. Yeah, he also is like really well cast, I think.
He was cool though.
Yeah, he really cool. And the Fremen are really cool. Like all the casting of the Fremen, they have these blue eyes because of the exposure to spice.
Mm-hmm.
And they look so fucking, you know, both like they look primally dangerous, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like how when you have to endure such an insanely harsh environment, you get like really strong. But yeah, so the thing is that Paul and Lady Jessica, they managed to kind of prove that they're not pushovers, and the Fremen decide that led by Stilgar, decide that they can come with them. But then there's like one Fremen, Jamis, who is like, no, I don't trust these guys. I want. Is it because of Lady Jessica? He wants Lady Jessica to be killed.
Yeah, it's something like that. I don't really remember, but he.
Yeah.
But
he disagrees and invokes like an ancient tradition of like battle to the death, basically.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do. Like, life is not regarded highly. So yeah, he opposes that decision, and it's like a duel between him and Paul Atreides. And Paul, like you said, here we get to see that Paul is actually a fighter trained by like the best instructors in the galaxy.
Yeah.
He is really, really good at fighting, and especially like knife and sword fighting.
There were a lot of good things in this scene, because that I also want to mention that really helps sell it and make it even more special is that leading up to that duel, when they're in that standoff and talking with the Fremen, you see Shani shows up, and then she was like, you know what, I want you to die with honor, so you can have this Christ knife that I received from my grandmother or something. And a Christ knife is essentially a sacred tool for the Fremen, which is it's a dagger made out of the sandworm teeth.
Yeah.
And so she lends that to him, so he can use it in the duel. And she says, like, Jamis is a great fighter. He'll make it quick.
Fuck you up.
And then, and then you also see, and then you also see like Paul having visions of Jamis. First, throughout the movie, he's had visions of Jamis being portrayed as a friend that you should, and this voice saying like, seek out this friend. He will help you. He'll teach you the ways. And you see Jamis all through that appearing like this kind of like nice veteran hermit character that you see in a lot of fantasy.
Yeah.
But then suddenly he's the one who calls for a duel, and they say like, yeah, he's a great fighter, and Paul has a lot of visions of Jamis killing him.
Yeah.
And all this sets it up, and he seems like a badass. And then when he just sits there and he squats with the knife in preparation for the battle, he looks so hard.
So intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
he kind of stares straight ahead.
Yeah.
And Paul kind of enters the duel ring, basically like walking,
Yeah.
And he doesn't acknowledge him entering at all. He just stares straight ahead with those bright blue eyes.
Yeah.
So focused,
Yeah.
Just squatting down with the knife in his hand. He looks so fucking badass.
Yeah, it was a great scene. And then when they actually start fighting, I mean, Paul just obliterates him. He just instantly gets the upper hand and just like puts the knife to his throat and demands that he yields.
Yeah.
But then, the Fremen are objecting profusely because apparently that's against the tradition and stuff. There's no yielding.
No.
And then
there's only one way out, and that's death.
Yeah, and Paul just keeps just getting him into these stalemates with the knives to his throat, and there's just no way Jamis is gonna win it. And he keeps getting more like primal, and he does all these screams, and he's just becoming really agitated. And eventually he just forces Paul to kill him.
Yeah.
And that's sort of when the Fremen acknowledges him as something special, and they allow both him and his mom to proceed. And that's also when one of the visions that now have become questionable in terms of like, okay, they are versions of the future.
Yeah. And this is where you kind of see that Paul is not seeing an absolute future. He is actually, and his actions actually shape the future, you know, and the different paths that are possible. And he's using his knowledge of the future to, like you said, Jamis would kill him in a duel. So and you get this voice like rise to the challenge or rise up or something, calling to Paul, and he decides that he can't die here.
Yeah.
Like you get that feeling that he's like he doesn't want to kill Jamis at all, and he knows like the potential that their friendship could have, but he realizes that there's no way out. He is either gonna die or Jamis is gonna die.
Yeah.
and then he kills him, which is like a really like powerful scene. And there are a lot of very subtle things that are communicated here, but
I thought this scene was such a delight from from all the reasons we just mentioned and more. It just it's a very great scene, and also, but then right after, Shani finally kind of seems to acknowledge him a little bit, and then you get to see one of those things that he has seen in a vision with Shani, and then you see that actually becoming true.
Right. Yeah.
So
you're kind of confused by the visions at first, but that's. I think that's like intentional.
Yeah.
And like Paul, you're supposed to feel like him. He can't make sense of this either.
No.
But then he meets these people and he understands that some of the visions are not coming to pass.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that way, essentially.
And like with Shani, you don't see much of her, but. She is foreshadowed as being, hugely important, of course. And I love before the duel with Jamis, like Paul is just standing, contemplating quietly, and you also feel that's what I was getting at earlier, that you feel that you can feel the mortal peril here. You really don't get the feeling that this is a surefire victory for him, because he can see his own death, and Jamis is he is a badass,
Yeah.
And then like Shani is like, yeah, here's the dagger, you're gonna fucking die, so die with honor. But Paul is slowly getting more collected,
Yeah.
and he's kind of, you can really see the portrayal that Timothy does here is expertly done. You can see that he's gaining more confidence, and he's being hardened by the process where he's had to survive, and he's been hunted and having his father killed and stuff like that.
Yeah,
he's growing fast, and that's in his eyes where he does the salute, the Atreides salute, with the weapon over your forehead. Before the duel, that's you can see the determination in his eyes. He's really not gonna play around,
Yeah, and
fucking hard.
Yeah, I thought, what a great portrayal, what a great character, and I think as a protagonist, he's pretty damn good. He sells everything he needs to, and I think also that something with those visions, for example, could easily have become and the fact that he's like, he adopts the Fremen ways really fast instinctively. These things could also be maybe likened to how Rey was in Star Wars, but I think they did a better job here of dropping subtle clues as to why this is. For example, as soon as
much better.
Yeah, and when Kyne, for example, gives him the filtration suit and he puts it on the way a native would, without having to warn it before, she actually mentions in her native tongue, like it sounds like a prophesized chant almost, which reads something like, the Messiah shall be born imprinted with the ways of the people and stuff like that. There's always like breadcrumbs that tell you like, okay, so this is established in universe, and his visions are also not perfect, so they cannot make him just Gary Sue his way out of every
no.
And he's been trained his whole life by the best, which also explains a lot.
And that's kind of what sells it here, because Rey, she is just like some fucking nobody on the desert planet. She has to survive in a harsh environment, but she's not trained in the ways of the Jedi like for years and years and years. But Paul is trained in the ways of fighting, the Atreides style of fighting since birth, so he's more believable, even though he's a small kid. And he's still like scrawny and especially like the early stages, so you get the feeling that Gurney, he's more of that testosterone hardened warrior, whereas Paul is more, he's very proficient, but he's not as aggressive, and stuff like that. But that kind of comes and grows on him. But like you said, when Kynes comments upon the way he wears the still suit, you can kind of infer that maybe Paul. I thought that maybe Paul just subconsciously picked that up from one of his visions. Maybe he saw like a still suit in a vision, and his brain was like, yeah, that's the way it's supposed to be, and he put him on like that. Which is like a very great way to, and they don't tell you that. I mean, that's my little interpretation of how that went down, But I feel it's very, it's such an intuitive conclusion to make, and to kind of tell that he is intertwined with the Fremen's destiny here, in very subtle ways.
Yeah, and this all builds up to the very end after the duel, where Jessica, or where Stilgar and the Fremen decides to take them to their siege. Is that what it's called? The pockets that they live in. And then Jessica objects, saying like, no, we need to get off world. We need to, report all of this. But then Paul is like, no, our path leads through the desert. And he's now convinced, without a doubt, that and then he also mentioned like how Leto wanted to get the desert power, as he calls it, by helping and uniting with the Fremen. And Paul, just like now, he knows where he's supposed to go. And that was such a good moment as well.
Very good.
And I love this movie.
And it's not tacked on, sometimes. So like the actions like that, like prophesized, no, we're gonna do like this and this because I know it in my heart. They can be very unsubstantiated, but in this movie, that's like the whole thing. They build this up, and it feels very right when the delivery comes.
Yeah.
Right. Like he is now in the firm belief that is what he is supposed to do, and you can well believe that he has come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
And in like even strong enough to overpower the logic of wanting to report to the House of Atreides and like get like military support and whatever. But now it comes to one of my small logical inconsistencies again, which was when they walk off from because the duel delays their departure a little bit, and the sun comes up.
Yeah, right.
And like that's a major thing because the sun is, of course, scorching the surface of the planet, and it's really hot, and they need to conserve energy and water and stuff like that. So, but when they walk off as the sun rises after the duel, a lot of them don't have the mouth cover on. Which is like if moisture is so fucking important, then you need to have even though you have the nose thing, they have like a nose almost IV drip kind of thing, the oxygen nose tubes like contraption to capture moisture or whatever. They have their mouths are not covered, and like moisture from your exhaled breath is presumed to be important. So that's also like one of my like small logical inconsistencies.
Yeah, I think that maybe once we see the beginning of the next movie, then maybe that's gonna be shown that they immediately put it on or something.
Yeah, probably.
But for now, I get
that's like that's autistic levels of criticism, but that's just me. And I mean, you have to make some compromises because you are supposed to like show emotion in these characters, and there were a lot of emotions shown in that last scene.
Yeah.
And it's hard to do without the mouth,
Yeah.
and like the mimics of the movements of the lower half of the face.
Yeah, exactly. It would become. I think it would be a hassle if they have to just redo voiceovers like they did for Tom Hardy's Bane in Dark Knight Rises for every character. And suddenly everybody's like, "You merely adopted the darkness."
I was born in it.
Exactly. Oh man, but
yeah.
But I guess to sum it up though, the fact that you have to go to that level of nitpick to find something, obviously,
then
I think that says a lot.
to be very clear here, that doesn't detract from the score.
No.
That little detail there, no, not at all. I'm just pointing it out. So then there are probably more inconsistencies, that I didn't get to be autistic about. But yeah.
One last thing I want to touch on a little bit though is that, like you mentioned, that 40K took a lot of inspiration from the original Dune novels.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's kind of become a circle of life in terms of like, because I know that they've updated some of the designs and stuff as a modern interpretation of the old novel. So they made a lot of them, the suits a lot more badass and everything looks a little bit more stylized. But there were a lot of very 40K-esque things in here that I really appreciated. One of the things that we both, I think, thought of, this scene slapped on an extra 0.5, I'm pretty sure, to my score. Because the scene where you see the Sardaukar battalions.
Yeah, that scene. Yeah, that was so good. Yeah,
that's one of my favorite scenes of any time, because you see all these battalions there. They are like zealous. These people are. They're a warrior culture. They're the elite forces of the Emperor, and they are also for hire for a very steep price. They're the best fighters, and it was very like Viking-esque also, with this whole, just dying combat is the best way, the only way. Kind of, they gave off those vibes.
Yeah.
You just see the battalions there, and they're having a religious mass, where.
Yeah.
There's this pillar with a guy who's like, and he's just like, fused with this pillar almost, and he has this gigantic metal contraption on his head, and he's just talking with this booming sort of like bassy goblin voice, and he's preaching to the battalions, and it almost
sounds like a Maori, those New Zealand warriors.
Yeah,
it sounds like that kind of warrior chant just through a didgeridoo.
Yeah.
Based up to like high heaven. It's like
almost a little bit like the Mongol guttural.
Comical.
Yeah.
It's like a Mongol, like traditional Mongol.
Like the throat singing.
The throat singing, yeah. And and like you said, there's like this huge staging area just fucking going on and on for like as long as the eye can see, with like probably hundreds of thousands of warriors on it, and they're like all information, like some kind of warrior dance like thing, while the Harkonnen representative is like bargaining with one of the leaders, for the sellsword activity.
Yeah.
And it's just so 40K. Like, it's so fucking good. We both laughed when that scene was on.
Yeah, just out of sheer glee, because the fucking he really reminds me of especially that guy that was holding the mass. It really seemed like he was, he was integrated with that pillar, sort of like that. That holding that mass was his only God-given purpose.
That was his job.
Yeah.
That was basically his thing to do in life. That was being on that pillar and like fucking frenzying these soldiers with his, and it was almost comical how like hard and deep that voice was, and bassy.
And I love that though, and because it really reminded me of some of those things you see in 40K as well, where there as well you have, because there's so many people in that galaxy, that you can have a person dedicate his entire life being confined to a machine where his purpose is to read a scroll, or like some bullshit like that. And that's really what this reminded me of too, and I really loved it. I had a lot of fun with that.
Oh yeah.
What a great scene.
Yeah, so to sum it up, a great movie, guys. Go see it. Do subscribe and follow us wherever you can find us.
Yes, please do.
We've been going on for quite some time now, so we're just gonna say stay dank and
stay human.